So it's been about 5, maybe 6 months since I last talked about the sniper on my channel, and I didn't really go over a specific weapon, I just sort of talked about them in general. And seeing how many of my TF2 videos are either short or just talking about the engineer, I realized I should probably start talking about other things. And recently I've been playing a lot of the sniper class in TF2 because I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned this, but he's actually my third favorite class to play in the entire game. Regardless, I'm here to talk about the compound bow, or just bow in general, because it's a rather complicated weapon to talk about. I've never heard people call it a crutch before because it could be argued that it's a lot harder to use than stock, but at the same time it's also easier to get kills with, if that makes sense. Whether you see it as a crutch or not, I'm here to talk about how it works and how much luck and skill is required to use it effectively. So with that being said, let's first talk about the stats. The compound bow, just like many of the primaries of sniper, has a charging effect, which means it can do a wide range of damage. For example, the base damage at 0% charge does 50 damage, while at 100% charge does 120 damage. And considering that it only takes 1 second to fully charge the bow, if you fall short of that 1 second, your damage can vary quite a lot. And on top of that, the bow has a function time called aim fatigue. Basically, from the moment you fully charge your bow, you have about 5 seconds before your accuracy decreases by a lot. So if you were to let go of the arrow after 5 seconds, it could go anywhere unexpectedly. But as long as you release or decharge your bow, this isn't really something you should worry about. But besides damage, the arrows have other unique functions to them. On the TF2 wiki it says this: like other projectiles, arrows can be deflected by a pyro using the compression blast. In addition, a friendly pyro can set fire to the huntsman arrows with any of their flamethrowers. If the arrow hits an enemy or even barely misses, the enemy is set on fire. However, pyros do not get kill assist for lighting a sniper's arrow. The arrow can be lowered without losing the lit arrow, ready for a later shot. Switching weapons, however, douses the arrow. Some elements of the map, like the torches on DeGroot Keep or the flaming barrels on Cold Pit, might light snipers' arrows on fire. Water does not extinguish the lit arrow. So how exactly does this information translate into gameplay? Well, just like any other sniper, you generally want to keep your distance if you're using your primary. However, the compound bow in this case sort of forces you to use it at medium range. Since of course you do not have a scope to aim with, it's really a matter of when it's the right time to shoot an arrow. Whenever I spot an enemy, usually I try to line up the crosshairs and then shoot an arrow, and sometimes this would work, but other times they'll obviously move out of the way. And that's just something that's common with the bow because it's rather an unpredictable primary. Even at times when you don't properly aim or see the enemy, you'll somehow get a headshot, and even at times when you die, you'll somehow still get a headshot. So what exactly am I trying to say? Well, in the beginning I mentioned that this weapon is a combination of luck and skill. Now, whether you believe in luck, that's up to you, but it's a word that many players would use to describe the bow because it almost seems impossible for a projectile that travels slow and is really hard to aim with to get a headshot at a far distance, let alone over and over again. Although it's not impossible, it's something that doesn't happen all that often. But when it does, players would usually say that you're very lucky, you're very skilled with the bow, or perhaps the hitbox is really stupid with it. And that brings me up to another point, because the hitbox is absolutely a factor in determining if you get a hit, a headshot, or whatever. Unfortunately, I don't have a proper image to show you of the bow's hitbox, but I do have this. I'm sure many players are familiar with this, or at least have seen it once. In case if you're not, this hitbox is basically the same for every class in TF2, with of course proportions being adjusted for height and size. However, this hitbox does not work for one weapon, and that is the bow. In a nutshell, the hitbox is something like this, which may seem crazy, but it's absolutely true. In fact, there's a YouTuber by the name of Shonik who did an entire video talking about this strangeness, and he goes into great detail on what exactly happens when an arrow passes through this hitbox. If you want to check out this video, I'll leave a link in the description below. But besides hitboxes and luck, this weapon still requires some practice in order to get some hits or maybe kills with it. Earlier in the video, I mentioned how inconsistent the bow could be since its projectiles travel slow and at an arch. And on top of that, since it doesn't have a scope, you're not able to pull off kills from a far distance as frequently as say with the sniper rifle. Although that may be seen as a disadvantage to many sniper mains, it does encourage a type of behavior that many sniper players are guilty of doing when using the bow. Of course, I'm referring to the act of peeking around corners, shooting, and then immediately taking cover. Rinse and repeat. This alone is the reason why many players considered the bow to be overpowered, because as a sniper, not only is your view range a lot wider than usual, but you also have the potential of killing the enemy faster with a headshot if they're not prepared. And considering that a body shot can do up to 120 damage means that classes such as the spy or scout can be taken out with only one shot anywhere on the body. So as long as you're aware of how far the enemy is, you shouldn't really have a problem, though of course that's if there isn't more than one enemy. So those are my thoughts on the bow and how I, along with many others, would use it. Whether you think it's a better or worse weapon than stock, that's really up to you, but I think we can all agree that it definitely has some advantages in certain areas. Either way, I'll still continue using it because I think it's a really fun weapon to use. Anyways, have a good day.